Today, I'm joined by astrologer and founder of Black Unicorn Enterprises, Philip Young, whose work in astrology, tarot, numerology, and past life regression helps people uncover soul level clarity and direction. In this conversation, we'll dive into the powerful astrological currents shaping our time, currents pulling us through a collective dark night of the soul. Together, we'll explore how these cosmic forces are awakening us individually and collectively, guiding humanity through transformation, truth, and the birth of a new way forward.
Welcome to Awakening Soul Divinity, your sacred space for deep healing and transformation. Listen to inspiring conversations with healing experts, spiritual guides, and teachers as we explore ancient wisdom, modern healing, and powerful stories of change. I'll also share practical insights from my personal journey, from spiritual crisis to inner purpose. Whether you're seeking to overcome anxiety, embrace your true nature, or awaken your higher self, this podcast offers guidance to help you transform your life and elevate collective consciousness.
We had you on in April of this year to find out what your healing journey was like to get to this point of the work that you do now. And it was a very powerful conversation. And we learned a ton from you about karma and self-abandonment and how panic is actually a useful tool to bring us to awakening. And for those of you who are watching, you can also see that video on this channel. So obviously, a lot has been going on in the world since we last spoke. And
Yes.
and now I'd like to dig a little deeper with you into the work you do with astrology and what's going on. All right. So, as stated, as witnessed, as experienced, there's a lot going on in the world today that's being shaped or guided by the stars and planets. Can you open with what it is that you do and focus on how this planetary movement is affecting us?
Certainly. Absolutely can. So what we do as astrologers is we, of course, look at the movement of the solar system, and through that observation, we can see patterns and we talk about what those patterns look like. And the movement of the points in the sky have different speeds that they travel at. So some points move very quickly, like the moon changes sign every 2.5 days. Other points move very slowly, like Neptune, for example, changes signs every 13 to 14 years. And so when we're doing work with either individuals or we're being asked about something like you're asking about, which is what we would call maybe a mundane kind of astrology, which is to look at world events or world affairs and say, well, what can we, glean from what's going on in the sky as it applies on a much bigger scale than just one's individual chart. And certainly what's happening right now is a very rare occurrence, rare enough that it hasn't happened in roughly 12,000 years. And that is that points change signs, but because of their different speeds, they don't always change around the same time. But what's happening that is particularly unique and powerful is that what we count as the five outer points, this would be Saturn, Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They're all changing signs within a 2 year span of one another. In fact, three of them are moving back and forth between signs right now.
Mhm.
And when we look at and we try to assess kind of what's going on in terms of shifts that we can feel on a global level, we're looking at these outer planets when they change signs. So, for example,
Can I
go
ask
ahead.
a real quick question? No, because you had mentioned before we got on about the Kali Yuga, and I've heard people talking about that. And that's a 12, isn't that a 12,000 year
It,
cycle?
it is.
Can
So
you
what you'll
explain
see
that?
is whether they're talking about the Age of Aquarius, whether they're talking about the Kali Yuga, whether they're talking about, well, pretty much anything that is identifying some sort of significant change, these will probably all intersect in some way, shape, or form. So
Mhm.
I would be talking about it through astrological lenses. Someone might be talking about it through other lenses. But what we're can generally say that we're aware of is that there's a lot happening right now,
Okay.
more than usual. at levels that are profound. And we have markers for those historically. And usually the best markers are wars. World War II, World War I, Civil War, Revolutionary War. These are markers that are very clearly delineated as times when the world itself went through a type of change. And the thing about this type of change is that it's coinciding with transits that were specific to other events individually. So, for example, Pluto just left Aquarius and left Capricorn and went into Aquarius permanently on November 19th, 2024. The last time Pluto was in Capricorn was the period of the Revolutionary War and Revolutionary Wars in other parts of the world. Okay. So that just in and of itself, and where Neptune is right now and where Uranus is right now, during that period of time, they were not in a similar transition. So the Pluto at the Revolutionary War was significant. Now, if we take a look at Neptune, the last time Neptune was in Pisces and transiting Aries was during the Civil War in the United States. And it's significant because, like it or not, the United States has been, since its inception, kind of driving world events
Mhm.
one way or another. And so the really interesting one was to take a look at Uranus. The last time it was moving through Taurus and Gemini, so it's currently bouncing back and forth between Taurus and Gemini. It did that during the Great Depression and World War II, but interestingly enough, it also did it during the Civil War and it also did it during the Revolutionary War. So the one that we can identify as a sort of war, or if we're treating war as a transformational sort of function, then we are absolutely in the war function by that particular transit. And then we're adding in Pluto transiting, we're also adding in Neptune transiting, but Chiron is going to be making a transit between signs, and Saturn is currently making a transit between signs. So the sense that whether you're tuned into this the way I am, like you're looking at all the details and you're pulling it apart, or whether people are just walking around going, the world is going crazy, or it's on fire, or we have no idea where things are going, and everything is happening rapidly, and this change is happening over here, and here's AI, and all. Yes, the answer is yes. Astrologically is just a way to time it out.
Okay, so in that, can you, because this is kind of a scary thing for people.
Sure.
So can you kind of establish the way you did with me this transformational function that war has? Because it may not be what people think it might be, and there may be ways to understand this a little bit better, so it's not so scary for some people.
Well, I'm afraid it's going to be scary for a lot of people. There isn't going to be a sort of, oh, let's, brush over this and pretend like this isn't absolutely major change that's happening, because that's what those wars represented. And generally speaking, what they reflect in humanity's behavior is a clear imbalance of have and have not. And so what we see is very much, very clearly written about, very clearly observed, is a concentration of wealth into a very small group of people. And that creates a displacement for everybody else. And everybody else is scrambling for the scraps to a certain point.
Mhm.
And that generates a disruption that ultimately can lead to what we have, which is a battle for resources. And and that can come about now. Traditionally speaking, before we kind of hit this modern age, that was about sending troops somewhere and trying to grab land, grab resources, whatever it happens to be. But we're in a different time in terms of technology. So the concept of warfare is happening. I mean, if someone were to ask me, are we in World War III? I'd say, yeah, we're in World War III, but it's not the same as we're sending troops to land on the shores of China, or China sending troops over here to land on the shores of the United States. It's being handled through finances and trade and AI. There is a there is essentially a Cold War happening in terms of trying to gain the upper hand with these technologies, because there's an understanding that we're having a type of displacement that's being dealt with. And this is being reflected in Uranus's transit going into Gemini. So the question is, how do we deal with it? Not that it's
Right.
not happening.
Yeah, especially because most of the people watching this podcast are highly sensitive people and empaths, and we chose to be here at this time on the planet to uh we're a lot of us are space holders, a lot of us are healers, a lot of us are in these, certain aspects of our making sure everybody else is okay before we make sure we are okay. Is there something that you can add that you know about? If you can't, I can kind of throw it in, but can you add some information in for these for this group of people who's watching to know how to continue moving forward, because we chose to be here at this time
Sure.
for this exact thing. And again, like you said, it can be scary, but the more you focus on here inside and doing your healing work and all of that, that there's a different, it changes the energy, I feel, of even what's going on out there. It still changes the energy here. So that might bring us into like the, timelines and all kinds of things. But let's start here with the people who.
Well, let me use two analogies. One is the what they tell you when you get onto the airplane and they're giving you the little speech at the beginning of the flight. What did they tell you when the pressure in the cabin depressurizes and the little mask drops down? What did they tell you?
You put it on yourself first, and then you help whoever's next to you.
And what you said just a moment ago was all these people that are trying to help other people and not taking care of themselves. That's the wrong approach under this kind of energy.
Mm-hmm.
So putting yourself first is going to be essential to being able to help people because right now it's going to be the plane is the plane's going down to a certain extent. The cabin pressure has depressurized. So get your mask on and then you're going to have to wait to see what happens. That's what the challenge is. Now, the other analogy is a storm. Okay. So from a weather perspective, the transits that are happening right now is a category 5 hurricane. That's just what it is. I'm not trying to make it, more than it is or less than it is. That's just these level of transitions, we can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you deal with a major storm? You don't go run out in the middle of it and try to deal with it. You let it pass.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hardest thing for people that are light workers. I struggle with it is that to a certain extent, not only are we here to, experience this, but a lot of people are here to experience it and they're not going to make it through the storm. And so what's important is, how are we addressing our role to help people? And we've got to let a lot of the storm do its work too, right? I mean, in other words, right now you have tremendous power grabs going on that are completely blatant and they're not even trying to hide it anymore, right? I mean, if you look at what's going on in certain ways in which power is being shown politically, economically and so forth, there's not even any pretending anymore. It's just really kind of right there. But that's what these transits are introducing by where they are in their own design. So for example, Aries, which is where Saturn and Neptune currently are, they're going backwards into Pisces, and then they'll permanently go into Aries at the beginning of next year. That is a sort of, hey, we really need to deal with what we need to deal with, and it's not going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of what you're asking is, how do you get through it? And that's why I use the airplane analogy. The way people are going to get through it is make sure you've got your mask on so you can help other people.
Right. And you brought up another thing before we got started too, this liminal state thing.
Right.
I mean, even you're experiencing it as well. So
Oh,
you kind of
yeah.
brought it up a little bit when you shared what you did for these empaths and light workers, But
Right.
can you tell us about this liminal state that people are going through within these multiple timelines, how it feels, and what is it that people will need to do while they're going through this in order to keep going?
Well, and there's a Winston Churchill quote that is oftentimes used that was related to what he was dealing with during World War II, and it's appropriate. And the quote is they asked him, he said, "Well, if you're going through hell, what do? You keep going."
Keep going. Yeah.
And so the liminal state, what liminal state represents, and it's very uncomfortable, is a state in which there's nothing for you to do.
Like a void.
And
It's like a void, right?
it's a space in which you're having for wait for things external to coalesce.
Mm.
And the other thing that's important to remember too is that the so here's something that I'll get to share with you that'll be one of the first times I've talked about it publicly, is that there are three states that are the states that we as human beings generally deal with. And this is a an argument that I'm presenting, is that there is manifestation state. Manifestation is that I'm creating something,
Mhm.
right? So for example, I had a vehicle that I wanted to return to me that my wife was in possession of. And I just sort of set my intention of I want to manifest so that the vehicle returns to me in a very good, happy way. Okay. So there's manifestation state. Now we have to keep in mind that one of us is manifesting, but so is the other person, and their manifestation goals may be exactly opposite of our manifestation goals. So it isn't just about, I'd like to manifest this. It's also, what do other people who want to manifest power and control, they're out there doing their manifesting work too.
Mm.
Now, there's also what I call the safe state. The safe state is when we feel like we're safe. We can count on our day to day. There's a consistency. There is a reliability. There's a predictability. That's the safe state. And then there's the liminal state. And the liminal state is the most uncomfortable because it's transformational. What really makes it problematic and why it is so significant right now is it's lasting so much longer.
That's an understatement. Okay.
Right. Exactly. So to a large extent, it is almost as if, and this is going back to Churchill's quote, is that there isn't going to be a way to get comfortable until some of these things that are transpiring get done. Now, astrologically, one of the things I enjoy about having astrology is I have timelines, but most people don't want to hear the timelines because they're long,
Hmm.
right? People are like, well, because I did a presentation. I may have mentioned this in the previous event that we did together, but I did a presentation in 2020, and there was a particular combination going on astrologically, and I said we're getting ready to enter a period of major disruption, and it's going to be like playing baseball, where there are 9 innings, and every inning represents a year. You could hear the collective groan in the crowd.
Yeah.
Right. And I get it's like, again, this is not to try to be negative, but it is trying to be realistic. And sometimes the realism isn't joyful.
Mm-mm.
But if you set expectations of, oh, this is going to be over in a year, and then it's not over in a year, you enter a deeper state of frustration and disassociation. And then if it's not over in 2 years, and you thought it was going to be over in a year, but when you say, look, astrologically speaking, this is going to be from 2020 to 2030, and 2030 is when we'll be sort of on the other side. And then I can't tell you what's going to be on the other side because these kinds of disruptions are so significant that there are multiple timelines in place. So this is the idea of multiple timelines, and being able to see multiple timelines as people who are sensitive is very, very challenging. And
Yeah.
so when we were talking before we got on, I said, one of the things that I'm dealing with in my own personal story is I've got certain things that are in play and I can see different timelines, but I feel them as if they're all happening.
Hmm.
That's the part that's where it wears me out from day to day, is that those timelines aren't just theoretical. The idea of us elevating ourselves, those of us that are trying, that are connecting, is that we at a sort of fifth dimensional level, it's like, well, wait a second, I can see all of these other 3D possibilities, and now I'm also on an energetic level, kind of wrestling with them, but I really only need one of them. I want to get back to the safe state, right?
That's not going to happen right now, is it?
It's not.
No.
It's
Okay.
not. And and
Okay.
and again, what's going on particularly this year is three of the planets right now are bouncing between signs.
Hmm.
So this will be a peak year. I mean, it won't. This year and next year will be, if you want to use the term, hitting rock bottom or whatever term. It's like it can't get any more. This really is the period of time where it can't get any more. Whatever word you want to use.
Right. And that's the dark night of the soul, though.
That
That's
is the dark night of the soul.
and just so I can give some clarification as far as moving through your practice or your healing journey or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm throwing words out that people use all the time, that I use all the time. But the main thing, like, that I learned in my own dark nights of the soul, every single time something like this happened personally, or it was surrounding me and it kept coming back into my life, there was such a learning experience or opportunity about how to keep going, how to keep working through this and get to the other side, because I was in such a space, especially a couple of years ago in 2023, where I literally went into 10 days of depression and I didn't get off of a couch, and I was house sitting. All I did was take care of a dog, feed it, take it for a walk, come back in, I was back on the couch again. 20 hours a day I was sleeping. The 4 hours was when I was taking care of the dog.
Right.
So when you're in that place, there's not much you can do. And it is to me, it was a void. To me, it was like this darkness that I knew that I needed to work through on some level, but I couldn't really grasp it because I was right in the middle of it. Like, I was having cognitive dissonance. I was brain explosions and all kinds of things were going on. But what I learned was the things that are going to help us get through that, especially as old souls and highly sensitives, is centering self, is the meditation, is like today I did a half an hour meditation, which I've never done before, which was put noise canceling headphones on and dark. We don't go into the dark. The dark is the feminine. The darkness is feminine. People are afraid of the feminine. People are afraid, have been over the years. And so when we go into the feminine, into the quiet, into the darkness, it gives us our space back with ourselves. So there's a moment of surrender. There's a moment of peace. You're going to get that. And the more you do it, the more you can come out of this, so you can keep going. And things to do, like tools, one of the biggest tools is breath work. Just some kind of breath work. Don't do the deep dive breath work, because this is something where you want to balance your central nervous system to keep you in a centered space so you can keep going. But if you're in a space where you're ready to do that kind of work and release any other energies, emotional energies that you don't want to keep anymore, go for it. Find your ways of doing it. But as far as staying centered and walking through this time, it's hard to explain it, because I could never do this before. And I'm using the word never because I didn't understand how. Now, I don't go out that much. I go to the store, I go to the gym one day a week, and I hang out with a friend of mine on Sunday, and we'll go out to get something to eat and go for a walk or a hike. That's it. But when I'm out going to the store, I can feel all that stuff because I'm so
Sure.
sensitive. And so what I do is I actually, well, don't take this to heart because it's not exactly how I do it, but it's almost like when I'm driving and I can feel all this chaotic energy around me, I kind of zone into this space that helps me stay centered and in that safe space. Because if I don't do that, then and it's hard, like I said, it's hard to explain how that works. I've done it so often that I kind of like, I'm doing it right now. I'm just kind of zoning and going into this little calm space or whatever. But it's just something that we get to practice and we get to get good at, because we are here to be support for whatever this is that's going on. If we get caught up in it, don't scroll, don't doom scroll, don't get on. All that's not even really, may not even be happening. And we don't even know that, but we're sucking it in. So in order to keep going, we need to just kind of stay in this centered space. And so while everything's going on that Philip is talking about, then we have this space we can stay inside of and just kind of watch and observe and learn and surrender. So these are just a couple of little things I wanted to share with you, because as highly sensitive as an empath, this is not easy when it's normal. This is not normal.
Right. This is not normal.
Normal.
Absolutely.
Right. So please continue, unless with the like the timeline. I think the timelines and what you feel like people will need to do while going through this yourself, because that's why I wanted to share my side, but I'd like to know what you would suggest also if you have something.
Sure. And in fact, what I was going to suggest is if you can give me screen share, we can use your chart as an example of how what I would do, like for someone specifically, like with you, where these transits are taking place. So if you can allow me to share my screen, I'll show you what the way that astrology would be utilized to try to help. So try to help you in this particular instance.
Okay, let's see how I'm gonna do this. There
There
we
should
go.
be a little share option at the bottom that allows you to select
I'm
share
making
to multiple.
I'm making a co-host. Do you see the share?
I do. I've got it now.
Okay, so
So let
here
me know
we
when you can
go.
see my screen.
Uh, it's there we go.
Okay,
Yeah.
outstanding. So the way that I try to help people through this process of where we are right now is to first of all take a look at their natal chart. So what we're looking at is your natal chart here, and this allows me to sort of understand your design, what you came in and signed up for, astrologically speaking. Keeping in mind that your soul and your chart are two different things.
Mhm.
The chart is not the person. The chart is, a vehicle that your soul decided to drive around in. Then, in terms of what's going on in the world right now, what we want to do is we want to take a look at your chart and the chart of where things are at this particular time. And so, what we do is we take this and we go to kind of a situation where we're looking at your chart on the inside, and then we're looking at where the points are today on the outside. So, the transition is hitting you in a very specific way, just like it's hitting me in a very specific way. Like it would be hitting anyone that is watching and wanting to have their chart done, then we would be looking at how this is hitting in a specific way. And I think we may have talked a little bit about this when we looked at your chart, but I'm going
Yeah.
to
Can I
draw and explain.
I want to ask you something real quick because if I don't understand it, someone else might not. When you said it's here on the inside and it's here on the outside, are you talking about
Your
the
natal chart is repeated on the inside.
okay, and then the outside part
It's
is
where the points are today, right now.
okay, got it. Okay.
Okay. So let's take this ninth segment, we refer to it as a house.
Hmm.
This deals with our mastery of knowledge and how we engage the wider world, our belief systems. That's all this area deals with. So Pluto is the point I'm circling right now. It just went into this area of your chart. It's going to spend the next 20 years there. And so for you specifically, you're doing the podcast is in alignment with this astrological energy. In other words, the way you handle things is by doing something where you're increasing your power. Pluto is about power through being an expert that is trying to help the community, which is the Aquarian part of this. So there is a narrative that I can communicate to each person to find out what they need to be doing because some people need to be retreating from the situation. They don't need to be going out and trying to do more actively. You're on the other end of it. You are definitely in terms of, and again, very simplistically, just again, there's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to present here kind of quickly that is not going to really have time to be broken down, but just sort of go with it, which
Okay.
is that the ninth, the 10th, and the 11th segments of the chart have to do with the public facing self.
Hmm.
So not only is Pluto up here going into your ninth house, but Saturn, Neptune, and Chiron are all moving through the 11th house, which is the house of community. So in terms of you specifically and the transitions that are going on, your engagement is meant to be very public. That's how I would share the astrology with you is that your way through is to engage outwardly and let people know this is what's going on. I want to connect people and find out who needs something, whether it's an understanding from what I do astrologically, if it's another guest, if it's something you yourself do, whatever it is, that's your particular way through.
Okay.
Now, for me, it's very different because my positioning of the points and the houses are different than yours. So, for example, where I'm experiencing the plutonic energy that I just talked about for you, I'm experiencing it in my family, in the part of my chart that deals with my family.
Okay.
So, my issue of how I'm getting through it is to be much more actually withdrawn, not to be outward bound.
So that's interesting to me because I'm not a protester. So that's is that correct in this where I show
Right. In other words, you're going to shape the energy that is affecting the areas of your chart that are outward bound, but you still are doing it from the place of your own design.
I see. Okay, that's what I
And
was.
your design, your sun sign is below, it's in the lower part of the chart.
Mhm.
So, and it's in your third house of communication. So you are in many ways enacting your chart, but it's still you're doing something outward bound by doing these podcasts.
Okay,
And the energy is your way of addressing that, but you're also still operating within the confines of your design.
got
That's
it.
why getting your chart done is so important because some people are designed to be extroverts by chart, and other charts are introverted by design.
And I thought I was introverted.
You have an introverted chart for the most part.
I do. Okay.
So, so, but again, the fact that you do doesn't mean that these transits that are going on in the part of your chart that deals with the pulling you outward, that you'll still feel that compelling energy.
Okay.
So, in other words, there is no generalization. When I'm doing astrology, and I always try to communicate this to people, is that there is no useful generalization. It always has to be, let's look at the individual chart
Hmm.
and how to help someone through. So, to a certain extent, I can't tell people the way through in a generalized way. I really need to look at their chart to find out how to give them the best explanation. So for you, the explanation would be, no, you don't need to go join protests, but you do need to project outward. You just
Hmm.
need to do it in a way that matches with your chart, which is this is a great way to match with your chart.
Yeah, and I have to throw this in. This is a shout out for Philip because I've actually hired him twice. Once to do an astrocartography reading, and a second time to do what he just shared similarly, because we did look at the day that that we did the reading on, similar to what we did just now. And he's, I don't know, Philip, you're just like, you're right on it. You're intuitive. And the last reading that I had really kind of pushed me up and out into what I'm doing right now to um, share all this stuff. So thank you for that. I just want to put that
Yeah.
shout out
I'm
out.
glad. No, no,
So,
I appreciate that. Again, like I said, I mean, at the end of the day, I want things to be well,
mm,
but it's also the fact that this area is sort of a petri dish, spiritually speaking. It's a testing ground, and what we decide on astrologically and our designs, and then what's going on the wider astrology. Like you say, what does it mean for each of us to be at a certain stage? Like, for example, what do these transits mean for all of the young people that are
mhm,
15 to 25?
yeah.
What do these transits mean for the people that are getting ready to transition? Like they're the boomers. They're at the end of their story. So it's all varied, but what doesn't change is the level at which the liminal state is being created and sustained. And
Mhm,
this is where the struggle, I think, is how do you deal with a state of inconsistency that persists for a particularly long period of time? And it is, like you say, it is a lot of times small things. It is, can I do something? Like, for example, one of the things that was given to me that I found incredibly helpful that I'll share with you and in your audience is grounding by just walking barefoot on the ground. And there's a great video, I think you can find it on YouTube, about the grounding movement. And what the individual that spearheaded it, he actually worked in telecommunications. And so when you're building, you're building telecommunications, you have to have a ground wire
mhm.
that provides a grounding to the electronic signal or the electronic energy. And he said the problem is that all of the shoes that we wear have material that actually breaks the grounding effect that we would normally have by walking barefoot.
Right, right. The
And
actual the website is earthing.com, and I actually have whenever I'm doing I have a mattress cover, I have a foot pad that I keep under my desk so I can keep my feet grounded while I'm on a computer. So this is some really powerful and important information because we started
right,
when we're born, we're not born with shoes on. We're not meant to have shoes on unless it's, something just to protect the feet if we're in a certain landscape or whatever, but we have to ground the mother earth takes our negative energies, so to speak, our unhealthy energies, and it transmutes our energies and gives us back. I mean, if you, have you ever been to the beach? Have you ever been in the mountains? Have you ever touched a tree? Have you ever felt like more alive and more um or stronger, or you could breathe better, all these different things? That's all from grounding. So I'm glad you brought that up. And yes, that is a huge aspect of us as humans that we get to do and we get to take advantage of because it's free.
Absolutely. And so, from the astrological perspective, these transits will not be, in terms of all five of them, will not be fully complete until 2028.
Oh, joy.
So, right. But again, it's kind of like there is an effort on my part always to be responsible, but not trying to be. Now, I can't help if an interpretation is, well, Philip, you're kind of doomsaying. I'm like, I'm just reading the stars the way they show up. I'm not trying to be doomsaying, but this is no joke energy
But
right now that we're dealing with.
right. And here's the thing. When you say that, the thing that popped into my head immediately is, so how many doomsdays have we had that people have been portraying because of all this stuff? And nothing really doomsdays, I mean, we had the Civil War and we kept going and we had all these other wars. And granted, they were sad, they were all these horrible things were going on, but we made it through, those of us that made it through, and we kept going and rebuilt. I mean, that's life. That's how I see my life. It's constant like that. It's always
Well,
about crashing and then coming back out and rebuilding. It's like,
again, if you look at the cycles, and again, there's nothing new under the sun, and the cycles matter. Generally, if you can identify whatever might be the marker of the start of the period of disruption, that usually it's 4 to 6 years that it runs up to a peak, and then there's a pivot moment that we identify. So, let's say for example, the attack on Pearl Harbor as a marker for the start of World War II for the United States. World War II is already underway for Europe, but in terms of the United States being drawn into the conflict, that would have been considered the marking point. Now, that's 1941. You've got, then by 1943, actually you can see which way the wind's blowing. And at that point, Germany decided to take on a double front. They were trying to, have a war with Russia and a war with Europe. And at some point you knew that the Germans had, the energy was shifting out of their favor. And same with the Civil War. Civil War starts in 1861. Fort Sumter's attacked. But by 1863, a couple of years in, you kind of know which way things are going. The
mm,
Confederate Army is largely starving to death. They can't provide for the people. They don't have the numbers. They don't have the technology. You can see that it's getting ready to shift in some way, shape, or form. So, if we look at it as these things will transpire, it's just, how is it that some people are going through it? It's not an easy time. I mean, we're really seeing, and this is coming back around again, astrologically, isn't just that these points are shifting, it's what signs are they shifting in?
mm,
And one of the things I mentioned before we started the recording is that Saturn and Neptune both going into Aries, which they'll permanently be in at the beginning of next year, is really an in our face kind of energy. It really is, hey, what have we got to do to, you know, take care of ourselves, take care of the people that we care about, and it isn't going to be, it's the kind of things where it's like, okay, what would you do if Social Security was ended? What are you going to do if that is cut off? What are you going to, I mean, these are the kinds of energies that we have to face. Now, whether they'll happen or not, it's that we have to really ask ourselves the question of these systems that we've created, they're all getting, powerfully disrupted. And this is the time in which that happens, just as if we look back and go, what was happening when, and it isn't just, isn't specific to warfare. There is also technological transformation. Like, for example, when there's also there's an argument that the real shift in the war occurred because of the invention of the cotton gin. In other words, it wasn't simply a matter of ethics or a matter of success in terms of a better army versus worse army. There's argument to say, well, the technology just came along where the slaves were not even needed,
mhm.
and so that technology undercut a particular industry in a particular way. So there are a lot of different things, but what we're dealing with is that this is that time. It's this that we're in it, and you're asking a very fair question, which is how to get through it, and a lot of it is day to day
Hmm.
until the shifting completes itself. It is trying to figure out how do we manage each day.
Yeah, and that's what I've learned throughout my healing journey over my lifetime is just sitting with something and waiting and watching and finding a better way. I was going to ask that. It's like what's interesting is that when systems break, they break for a reason. And it's not like in my mind, and you might, I don't know if you have a different thought about this, but sometimes they break for a good reason.
Oh,
Maybe it's not working, obviously, so, but don't, from, I know there are people out there who are also finding a better way to create better systems, to use the things that actually work in the systems that we have now and just kind of revamp it. And that's how we do our life. It's like we crash. You go to the dark night of the soul, and then you find a better way. You find a better way to revamp your life, and that's how you do it individually, but it's going to happen similarly on a bigger scale. That's the way I see it. I did.
well, and
Okay, go ahead.
no, just to piggyback on that is that in order for a new system to have a chance to become what will be the norm, an old system has to be completely cleared out.
Mhm.
So, the real question of, what are we supposed to do during this time? A lot of the answer is nothing.
Sometimes that's
We're
right.
just supposed to do nothing and
Let it break.
let it break.
Because sometimes when we try to push something and force it and try to keep it and hold on to it, I got a story, and maybe this will help understand. So when my kids were little, we had a uh, cat in the house that we were living in. And my ex-husband went, and we had decided we were going to get a dog, right? And so he brings the dog home, walks in the front door. Before he walks in, he knocked on the door. And what did I do? This is my empath thing. Ready? So I picked the cat up to hold it so I could protect it, right? So I could make sure that the dog would be okay, the cat would be okay, whatever. So he walks in with the dog, and guess what the cat does? Back legs pushing off of my stomach, scratch, out of here. I am out of here. And I'm like, well, I could have avoided that and just let the cat do its thing rather than try to force the cat to be protected, because the cat could protect itself. So it's kind of
Right.
a similar, I see it that way. It's kind of a similar situation. When we hold on to something too much that doesn't need to be held on to, we're going to get scratched, and
Yeah.
it's painful and it's not fun. And when we learn our lesson, we learn how not to hold on so tightly, because it's not going to matter anyway, because it's going to fall apart. If it's going to fall apart, it's going to fall apart. And and everything ended up working out anyway, right? With the cat and the dog and the everything. But that's like an example of why not to hold on to things. Change is going to happen, and
Well, and the thing about it is change does happen, but what we have to recognize is that the level of change is at the highest possible degree that it can be once again. There are
right.
periods when we can look at it and go, yes, there's change generally going on. And then we can look at punctuated periods and go, holy crap, that was
Yeah.
significant change. We're
Yeah.
in the holy crap, this is significant change period,
Right.
right?
Right. And I wanted to ask you something. You had mentioned the word every seven, or the phrase every 7 years with this thing. You went into the whole Civil War and how long it lasted, and then World War II and all that.
4 to 6 years is
4 to 6 years.
generally 4 to 6 years is generally the duration of the period in which the transformation energy, once it's underway in a significant way, there's a point where it peaks like anything else, and then
Mhm.
it settles back down.
So can you compare that to the 4 to 6 years? Like where are we in that right now?
I think we'll see the peak point probably in 2027, 2028.
So we
This is the
still have,
starting point.
oh, we're at the starting. So
We're at the start.
2024
We're at the starting point of
20.
that significance, and I would say again, it's like looking for a marker. Now, what we have is trying to identify what's the moment that would be like Fort Sumter or like the bombing of Pearl Harbor. So the Liberation Day, when the president announced the tariffs against the entire world, not only allies but also people that would be considered enemies of the state, if you will, whatever it was. There was just a blanket, aggressive move that was worldwide. It was literally a worldwide movement. And so if that can be considered, and someone else might argue a different event. Someone might try to argue maybe the Ukraine war, maybe the Gaza attacks. Even if that's the case, there's still a period in which, generally speaking, historically, we can see a rise in the energy, it peaking, and then whatever is happening, whoever is going to ultimately end up on the winning side, because that's the other thing that's key with the Neptune energy being in Aries, is it is about winners and losers.
Mhm.
The energy is not about everybody coming together. That's not what this energy is. That's why it's repeating in a similar vein to what was going on in the Civil War.
You mean at this time?
At
Because,
this time,
okay,
there is an effort for there to be winners and losers,
okay,
right? For example, in the Civil War, the the people that were supporting slavery lost.
right.
That did not get to continue as a form of economy or as a form of behavior.
So technically, this could go either way.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what I know. I know people that are they're light workers want to see the positive thing, and I would love to see the positive outcome too. I would.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that we have historical periods in which we have gone backwards, historically speaking. It's called the
Well,
Middle Ages.
let with
So,
with the fact that we're rising in consciousness, maybe this will be a forward moving thing.
well, but the thing about it is
That.
that doesn't guarantee anything. That's
Yeah.
great to have. I appreciate it, but it's also challenging in some ways when you're still having to participate in the 3D world,
Well, that's
right?
true. Hmm.
The fact of the matter is that okay, well, if we are going to have some sort of what is the economy going to be? Because we're going to have an economy.
Hmm.
People will have to gather food, live in places, all of these things that will still have to go on. We'll still have to have some sort of commerce because that's part of the 3D experience. Now, the thing that is interesting, again, a couple of speakers that have been on like Diary of a CEO or some of the other podcasts specifically around AI, they have brought up UBI, which is the universal basic income. The idea that if AI is going to displace a large number of people, and we're going to have to figure out, well, where do you house them and how do you feed them?
Hmm.
Because if the economy is built around the idea that they're working and they're buying homes and this, that, and the other, but now you're displacing them because you're eliminating their jobs. And again, you can talk to Chat GPT, you can talk to Gemini, you can talk to any of the AI programs out there. And if you ask them, are they going to create more jobs than they're going to take away? The AI will be very honest with you and say, no, we're going to take more jobs away than we're going to create. What are we going to do with that, right? I mean, that's the essential question that we're wrestling with right now because, again, the idea, and I don't know if you know this term, Luddite. The Luddite movement was when the technology was being developed in the garment or textile industry, and it was displacing all of the workers because the new technology was coming in. And so the Luddites were the ones that were going in and trying to destroy the technology, like they were going to prevent the technology from happening.
Hmm.
So the idea that we're not going to have AI going forward in some way, shape, or form, no. In a year from now, AI will just be how we do things. Right
Hmm.
now, we're talking about it because it's being introduced and it's being applied. But one of the things that will happen, I'll use a very clear example. So I play solitaire on my phone when I'm taking a break from things, and it runs ads. And one of the ads it ran recently was for Wix, which is a web development website. And what Wix said is, hey, get Wix now. We're now using AI to develop websites. You can do one, you can build a beautiful website in 15 minutes. A year from now, Wix will not announce that it's using AI. It will just be using AI,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? So this is, I mean, again, it's the idea that yes, this is really challenging because the level of change is again at the top of the charts of the dynamics of it, and then the amount of it, not only the level but the amount and the duration. It's all a confluence of things. So yes, whatever anybody can do to try to recognize that this is going to be a hard energy to face, how can you help yourself through it? And, like it's us mentioning, I go out and walk in the grass to try to, help get some grounding. I have a breath work techniques. I'm doing every day, I'm doing 15 different things just to, kind of keep things, you know,
Centered.
manageable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and again, because I know of people who are doing this. I have friends who are doing these things or have explained about people they know who are doing these things. I don't There are, again, there are people out there who are finding better ways to do this stuff. So it's not like we're going into this hole with no other thing happening over here or under the surface
Right.
to help matters. It's just remembering that even though we may not know how to resolve something, somebody knows how to do it. And they're out there doing something. Just because they're quiet right now doesn't mean that it's not happening. And a lot of
Right. No,
times
and
people will
again,
stay
that's
quiet.
part of the right. That's part of the liminal state. The part of the liminal state
Right.
is there are a lot of different things happening, but to understand how much is changing and how rapidly, and also keep in mind that there are other people out there that are not trying to help the system change. They're actively trying to keep the system as it is.
Right. But
They're
there's,
actually trying to, and so that's why the energy of the Civil War is so
yeah.
appropriate for what we're dealing with.
And I feel
And
like
so,
there's a sustainability level though, because those that are trying to keep things the way they are, the things that are not working the way they
sure,
are there's a level of sustainability there where at some point it can't be that way anymore because we're moving, we're up leveling, um we're moving higher into higher vibrational frequencies, and a higher vibrational frequency, this down here is not going to work the same way that it used to work. So all these things are happening all at the same time, so it's not like, these are the terrible things that are happening and we're like lost cause. It's not like that. It's never been like that I.
no, no. But the thing about it is that the level in which we're facing change is that significant. And
Yeah.
again, it's going to matter. It's going to matter in terms of what does show up. And some of it may not even have anything to do with human beings making a decision. I mean, one of the things that we know that is going on right now is a lot of just changes in the climate in terms of what's going on with solar flare activity, what's going on with, I think the most recent thing that came up in the news was the Ring of Fire. There's a series of volcanoes. We've had more earthquakes in the last year than has been present in the so everything's in play right now. I mean, everything is all over the place. And so
Yeah.
to me, it's always bringing it back down to what is it you as an individual? You're watching this podcast, you're seeing what we're talking about. Where are you in your story and what do you need to help you transition? And a lot of it is just making sure to maintain until the larger shifts start to show where they are going to show up,
And
right? Until
change always starts in your own backyard. It doesn't start out there. It starts in here. So taking, like you're saying, taking a look at yourself and doing the healing and the whatever it takes for you to stay in your space, that helps with that change. Correct?
right.
Yes.
So the idea here is um, and again, it comes back to again, I'll just come back to the airplane analogy.
Right.
Put your mask on first. This is the time to think about, make sure you've got your mask on before you start trying to do anything else.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you won't be able to get your breath. You won't
The
be able to,
mask, yes, and the mask, thank you, thank you, thank you. It just hit me. The mask is your backyard. That's here. When you take care of yourself and you center yourself and you do your work and you let go of all those energies from all the programming and all that stuff, then you have the capacity to walk through this. If this all this stuff had happened uh between the last 2 to 4 years, I would be in a rubber room right now. There is no
well,
way that I could handle it. So I know for a fact that all of the work that I have done to clear out my nervous system and heal myself and grieve and all that stuff is helping me to get through this, to stay aware and enough to go and do the walks and to breathe and to take the naps when I need to and whatever. But that's the thing, is if you're not aware of it yourself, if you're not in line with who you are, the truth of who you are, you're probably going to fall into the trap of this chaos, and it doesn't need to be that way. And after 35 years of going through my life and my traumas and my experiences, and then recognizing on the other end that I can walk through things like this without crashing and burning, that's like a huge thing for me, you know, and
Sure.
that's why I do this work, is because I want people to understand that and see that, you know. So
Yeah,
I have one more question to ask you before we get
sure.
into the questions that I ask everybody that I interview. And yes, I'm going to ask you questions again. Can you go a bit deeper into how astrology is part of us as humans and how it helps to uncover the truth of who we are and where that's potentially leading us? Because people who use astrology has been around for thousands of years, whether people want to admit it or not. So,
Certainly,
yeah.
certainly. So again, in the same vein, astrology has been just happened to be the tool that I selected that helps me get through each thing because again, I can see what my design is and the astrology. Think of it as when you took your first breath, and again, let's put it into context of it is a choice. You chose the chart you have. So there's no victim, there's no, happenstance. It's like spiritually speaking, this is the chart that I selected. And then once you understand that, once that's interpreted for you, or you've done the work to figure out what it is, then you can really understand where not only your best place to express your energy is, but like with the astrocartography that we've done, which is like, well, what happens when you're in certain locations energetically? There isn't a perfect location in the world. Every location does different things energetically. Some of them can give you certain things that you need at certain times. There's a timing component to it. Some of them can be just something that resonates with you that you can spend time on that line your entire lifetime. But the whole idea of it is that it is about getting to the individual. The reason that I love astrology is that it is very specific to each person. And then what's going on with these larger transits is to help understand how to deal with that energy. So again, like I said, I know that the Plutonic transit that's happening for me is having to deal with my foundation, where I'm living, my family around me. That's where I'm going to feel the power of that energy for
Mm-hmm.
me personally. And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, with your example, I showed you that for you, it's about mastery of knowledge. It's doing something different for you because you have a different design. And
Mm-hmm.
so, for anybody that's wanting to have astrology be a tool that can help them navigate anything, relationships, getting through a particular time period like we're getting through, the astrology will give you something that I can point at or that you can look at and go, oh, there is this. And this is a design that I've selected. And how do I understand that design and how am I working with that and how can I bounce my experiences off of that? It's just an incredibly rich tool for helping really in any situation you're feeling stress under. The astrology can help you address it in a way that can keep it from being just feeling like you're being battered around. That's the thing is astrology functions kind of like an anchor. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about, liminal state and safety state and manifestation state, to me, the astrology is actually the safety state and some of the manifestation state to
Mm-hmm.
deal with the liminal state, which is what's going on when things are moving across the chart at certain times. But they're also doing something in particular that we're all feeling. We're all feeling this back and forth of these points, but we're all feeling it differently. And we're all feeling it in very specific ways.
Right, right. And I cannot remember the name of the guy, and I think it's in Greece, the Parthenon, maybe, whoever built the Parthenon. I don't know. Anyway, but there's a phrase that popped into my head when you were saying that, and it was know thyself. And
Right.
astrology gives you that opportunity to wrap your head and your heart around who you are and to give you opportunities to know what direction to go in. I don't know how it works. He knows how. I don't know what direction you're in on the screen, but you know how it works better than I do. But I do know that it's going to help you to understand who you are. And you've read even the, newspaper astrology readings and all that kind of stuff, all these little things, but they still talk about the same who you are within it. And you just sit there when you read it for the first time, you're like, how do they know that? How do they know who I am? Well, obviously there's a reason for that, but when you know who you are and you know the truth of who you are, you know what direction to go in and you don't feel directionless. And that's huge. That is a
Sure.
huge thing. And I can
Absolutely.
totally vouch for that. So yeah, so thank you for that, Philip.
Absolutely.
All right. So the first question I want to ask you is, if you could offer one piece of advice to someone just starting their healing journey, what would it be?
Patience.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be the one thing that I've learned on my own healing journey is to be patient with myself and to give
Mhm.
myself grace. I think that would be the one piece of advice I would offer.
Yes. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Grace is a challenge. Give yourself grace. How do you define awakening?
Um, I guess the way I would define awakening is moving from a state of either not knowing or not understanding to a higher state of knowing and understanding, which can continue to go onward as time passes.
Mhm.
The way I like to think of it is imagine a funnel like a tornado where it widens as it gets closer to the top. And each time you come around to a certain point, let's say falling in love, you fall in love at 12 is different than falling in love at 24 is different than falling in love at 36. And the hope is that you're expanding
Yeah.
as you're having those experiences and you're not stuck in one of the other states. So to me, awakening is that you're continuing to pay attention.
Yeah, that's so funny that you brought that up because I use the opposite. I use a mountain with a mountain peak top, and you're going around in the spiral, same thing, and you come to the same location you see out each time, but it looks different because of the growth that you've had.
Right.
But then you eventually come to a peak, and then you get to realize that there's more mountains.
Right. I can see one over there that's a little taller. Let me go over
Yeah,
there and
let's
check
try
that
that
one
one out now. And that's the whole thing. Our lives are it's a game. And when
out.
we play the game like it's a game, then there's joy. When we play the game like it's a challenge, then you'll have challenges. We attract what we believe in. Our belief systems are really powerful. So, and then with the awakening piece of it, because you did touch on this, what do you believe then soul divinity is?
Well, I think soul divinity is a constant state of learning, and it's the reason why I think reincarnation is an appropriate explanatory model that really handles things that we bring with us that we may not understand how we got it. I mean, it's like having a certain skill set that you've never practiced on, but it may have been a skill you had in a previous lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the idea of soul divinity is our contribution to the larger collective soul that is part of the universal energy, and that we are going to constantly be trying to learn something new, which is why we keep coming back, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. Okay. How can people get in touch with you?
So the easiest way is to reach out through me through my website, which is the title of my business, Black Unicorn, but unicorn is spelled with a Y and a K. So it's BlackUNYKORN.com.
Okay.
And also if you did, I'm fortunate enough that if you typed in my name, Philip Young, and you also threw in the PhD and then typed in Black Unicorn, even if you didn't spell it the way I spelled it, you'll probably find my website, fortunately, because the black unicorn and the connection with my name narrows a Google search down without having to do a whole lot of SEO to make it happen.
Yeah. Okay, good. And of course your links will be in the description so people can find you. And
Absolutely.
is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up, Philip?
Well, again, that it is a challenging time and it is a question of how we will address those challenges.
Hmm.
And it is important to try to hold that space of this is a quote from a client of mine that I'll use is what is the beauty in your difficulty?
Hmm.
What is the beauty in our difficulty? What is beautiful in your life, even if you can look and go, wow, this is really not the world I thought I would be part of, which is fair. It's fair to be able to look out there and go, wow, I really didn't think we were going to be treating people this way, that we can see people being treated, you know, as a matter of data, right? Um, but to still go, but what is it that's still beautiful about my experience and how I'm responding to those things? So what is the beauty? What is the beauty in your difficulty? What is the beauty in the difficulty of these times?
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a good opportunity to go out into nature and put your feet in the grass. There's the
A-
beauty right there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then whatever the small things are that matter, to you. I mean, for me, it's the enjoyment of I just love the taste of Oreo cookies, and I can still get them. So, whenever I need a little bit of a pick me up in the craziness of the world, I'll just have myself an Oreo cookie and go, man, this tastes really good.
Perfect. I love that. I love that. And it's okay. I learned a long time ago that as long as you are taking care of yourself, eating right and doing all the stuff, 80% of the time, your endorphins will kick in and heal you if you eat an Oreo cookie, if you like them. I don't like Oreo
Absolutely.
cookies.
Absolutely. And mine are the ones I eat are gluten free. So I at
There
least
you
need to tone it
go.
down a little bit more than just
Yeah.
normal.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, Philip. Thank you so much for coming
My
back
pleasure.
on here. I really enjoyed this to the extent I could enjoy it. I mean, the end was a little bit better.
Well, I mean, again, it's not, again, we're not, it wasn't like we got on here and talked about celebrity crushes or anything, something like
Right.
that.
Yeah. We get a little deep sometimes, it's not just the surfacey level stuff. So,
Sure.
sometimes, but that's all right. We're here for a purpose. We're here for a reason. We're here to connect. We're here to heal. And one of the connection spaces is this community in Awakening Soul Divinity. And we are so happy that you are here watching. And I think that should do it.
And thank you, Carolyn, for doing this.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for having me back on. I
Yeah.
always enjoy talking to you.
Aw, thanks. So maybe there'll be another one. Let's see what happens in a few months, because it's helpful to understand what's going on. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, all
Absolutely.
right. All right. Well, take care, everyone. And that's a wrap.